If you're familiar with the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, you've probably heard that most people who enter this program don't get their loans forgiven. In fact, I recently read a stat that 98% of applications for public service loan forgiveness from November 9th of 2020 to April 30th, 2021 were rejected. Only 2 out of every 100 applicants were approved.
The Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, otherwise known as PSLF for short, gets a lot of flack and a lot of heat for this reason. Is public service loan forgiveness a scam? In this episode, we're breaking down what this program is, how it actually works, and our personal thoughts.
Hey Wealth Builders, I'm Meshach.
And I'm Akiva.
And welcome back to another episode of The Bemused, where we talk about all things personal finance for young adults just like you and us.
So if you're into that kind of thing, go on ahead and hit that big red subscribe button. And while you're at it, click that notification bell so you never miss when we post new valuable videos just like this one right here.
First things first. What even is public service loan forgiveness? PSLF is a program that the federal government has that allows for a portion of federal student loan borrowers' loan balance to be forgiven. Now, what do you need to do to qualify for this program? Well, there are 5 requirements. To qualify for public service loan forgiveness, you must be employed by a U.S., federal, state, local, or tribal government or nonprofit organization. You must work full-time for that agency or organization, have direct loans, repay your loans under an IncomeDriven Repayment plan, and make 120 qualifying payments.
So let's break down these requirements a little further. First, the qualifying employer. Qualifying employment for the PSLF program isn't about the specific job that you do for your employer. Instead, it's about who your employer is. So you have to work for either a federal, state, local, or tribal government, including the military, or a nonprofit 501c3 organization. Serving as a full-time AmeriCorps or Peace Corps volunteer also counts as qualifying employment for the PSLF program. Labor unions, partisan political organizations, and for-profit organizations, including for-profit government contractors, do not count. Now, if you're working for a nonprofit, I want to reiterate that they need to have 501c3 status with the IRS. That's really important. One question you might have is, what if I set up my own 501c3 organization? Does that count? Yes, it does. Now, there are a few exceptions to this rule, though. If you work for a nonprofit organization that is not a 501c3, it might still be considered a qualifying employer for PSLF if it provides certain types of qualifying public services, including emergency management, public safety, public health, public library services, and a few others. And we'll make sure to include a link to the full list below. But the takeaway here is to make sure that you are working for a qualified employer if you are pursuing public service loan forgiveness.
Now let's talk about the second requirement, which is that you have to be working full-time for this qualifying employer. What do they consider full-time? You are considered to be working full-time if you meet your employer's definition of a full-time employee or work at least 30 hours per week, whichever is greater. If you are employed in more than one qualifying part-time job at the same time, you will be considered full-time if you work a combined average of at least 30 hours per week with your employers.
The third requirement is that you must have direct loans. Not every federal student loan counts. Federal Family Education Loans, or FFEL loans, and Perkins loans do not count. So what can you do if you have loans that aren't direct loans? You can consolidate your loans so that they then become eligible for public service loan forgiveness. Consolidation basically means that you're taking these loans and combining them together. The good news is that you don't need to consolidate all of your loans together. You can pick and choose which ones you want to consolidate. So you can work around this rule by consolidating just the loans that may not otherwise be eligible.
Quick commercial break. Want to become the rich auntie or uncle of your dreams? When you take our super fun 2-minute free quiz, you'll discover some of the areas of your financial life that might be holding you back and get actionable tips to improve them. If you want to take the quiz, the link will be down in the description box below and pinned to the first comment under this video. Now, back to the conversation.
The fourth requirement for public service loan forgiveness is that you need to be making payments under an income-driven repayments plan. There are so many different types of federal student loan repayment plans to choose from, and we made a YouTube video that explains all of the plans, which we will definitely link below. However, to qualify for PSLF, you need to be on an income-driven plan. The standard repayment plan, graduated repayment plans, extended repayment plan, and alternative repayment plans do not count.
The fifth requirement is that you must make 120 qualifying monthly payments. So what are qualifying payments? A qualifying monthly payment is a payment that you make under a qualifying repayment plan for the full amount due as shown on your bill, no later than 15 days after the due date and while you're employed full-time by a qualifying employer. Mouthful. You can make qualifying monthly payments only during periods when you're required to make a payment. So payments that are made while your loans are in an in-school status, grace period, deferment, or forbearance do not count. One notable exception is the forbearance that we were all in from March 2020 through January 2022. In fact, even if you haven't been making payments at all during this time, the Department of Education is counting it as if you did. Now, if you want to make qualifying payments, but you're in a deferment or forbearance, contact your federal student loan servicer to waive your deferment or forbearance. Another thing to note is that your 120 qualifying monthly payments do not need to be consecutive. For example, if you work for a qualifying employer and then go into the private sector for a little while and then go back to working for the qualifying employer, you'll not lose credit for your prior payments that you've made. The best way to ensure that you're making on-time, complete payments is to sign up for automatic debit with your loan servicer.
Because you have to make 120 qualifying monthly payments, it'll take at least 10 years before you can qualify for PSLF. When you've met all of these requirements and it's time to get your loans forgiven, you have to put in an application. You must be working for a qualifying employer at the time you submit the form for forgiveness and at the time that the remaining balance on your loan is forgiven. It's going to take some time for the application to be processed, so be patient. But if you have followed all of the rules, you should be okay.
If you're interested in pursuing public service loan forgiveness, the Department of Education has created a tool called the PSLF Help Tool. It will help you determine whether you work for a qualifying employer, suggest actions you can take to become eligible for PSLF, and guide you through the PSLF form and submission process, which we will link below.
So now that we understand what public service loan forgiveness is and how it works, let's talk a little bit about our personal thoughts. There are a lot of people out there who have villainized this program. Some say it's a poor use of taxpayer dollars, some think it's too complicated to the point where it becomes a scam. Mishak, what do you think about this program?
Yeah, so when I applied for the program quite some time ago, I can speak to the process so far. It was a bit daunting, right? I had to call, and if you guys know me, I'm gonna call like 5 times to make sure that I got it right and speak to different representatives. So it was a bit challenging to get it set up in the initial phase, and like we mentioned that there are different steps. Overall on the program itself, aside from my initial struggles getting it set up, I think that it's a pretty good program if it works, right? I can't speak to if it works or not because I haven't gotten to the stage where I'm at the point where I'm submitting my application to get my loans forgiven. But I think that the intention of the program is important. I think that for trying to help bridge the wealth gap, I think that it's great on that. I think that, again, don't quote me on this, but statistically, minority individuals probably have higher student loan balances. So I think as a tool to try and help them kind of bridge that gap, that it's a great tool. And it's also a great tool just to help any old person who's working for a 501c3 company that qualifies, get their loans forgiven. After you have gone to school for 4 years, some people even more, to have mountain amounts of student loans on your back trying to start your life, this large amount of student loans that's leaving your account each month, It's a lot. So even though it's a long period of time, 10 years or 120 qualifying payments, it's nice to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So that's my overarching, thoughts on the whole program. I think that overall, it has its purpose, and I think it's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people get personally attacked for taking advantage of public service loan forgiveness. So I see less so of people saying this is a terrible program, and more so people, when they see other people going about the program, they're like, oh, no, you're selfish for wanting to get your loans forgiven, or you're selfish for, taking advantage of this, when it's like, this is a provision when I took out my loans. I knew that this was an option. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like I'm here trying to swindle the system. It's a part of the system. So I say, if you qualify for it, go ahead and do that. If it makes sense for your financial situation, go ahead and do that. Yeah. Personally, I don't think either of us, I've never been on PSLF. He has, and he'll probably be coming off of it very soon once, repayment starts and you actually need to recertify your income again, because since we've gotten married, that income hasn't been reported. So once, everything goes, the income will probably skyrocket, the payments will probably skyrocket to even more than what it would be under the standard 10-year plan. So we may not end up staying on that, he may not end up staying on that. However, I think that if it's a provision of the system, go ahead. Just like taxes, you wouldn't be complaining if someone took advantage of every tax credit that was available to them. I don't see the issue when it comes to public service loan forgiveness. People are working. The whole point is to incentivize people who are either serving their country or their government, working in a nonprofit organization, those kinds of things. I say, why not?
And that's a good point. I think we've been hearing from, on the interwebs, people make those comments that, hey, well, I didn't get my loans forgiven, so you shouldn't either. I personally don't agree with that type of culture. We personally don't, that it's a, if I did it, you can too type of mentality. We know that each person is different. And the circumstances of each person are going to be different, so therefore they need to be treated differently. And like Akiva said, some people know about this, and this is their strategy going in. They know that they want to work in government, so they're very strategic about what they do. And ultimately, I think that having more conversations like this and getting the word out about programs like this will be able to help people make informed decisions. So even if they do come out with mountains, of student loans, that they can say, well, hey, I know that I'm going to work for this company. I've got this job lined up. They qualify, and, create a path for yourself. I think that there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Agreed.
If you got value out of this episode, comment the word value down below and share this video with a friend.
We dive deep into tackling debt repayment and so much more in our program, Money 180. So if you're interested in learning more about that, the link will be down in the description box below.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss when we post new content. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.